It's time for Reason.
These are the ones that are trying to get illegal aliens to be able to vote in our elections. This is the party trying to get people who are actually incarcerated at the time to actually vote. This is the same party that doesn't want voter ID laws, and now they're saying, the county's missed it by a day. Sorry, you can't get those voted. You got to be removed off the ballots. So you want them to be able to vote. You just don't want them to be able to sign a petition to get one of your opponents on the ballot as a candidate.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's kind of what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason. It's a Wednesday. It's a hashtag freedom-loving Wednesday. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation. Here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. What's up? Welcome aboard. Great to have you along today. I don't know if it's just my computer. I don't know if it's just all over social media, but the Facebook Live seems to be a little glitchy today. It's not like a smooth transition. It's kind of like all pixelated. Not sure if it's that or not. Hopefully the TV, we are on TV as well, KGPT TV, channel 2610. Hopefully everything's running good on that end. Let me know one way or another. If so, then all the power to us. That's awesome. If not, then I don't know what's going on. Maybe some internet stuff. Maybe just, the man trying to keep us down. Welcome in, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. What a show we got for you today. It's going to be a heck of a good one as we are getting a little bit closer to election season, but I'm not going to burn you out on election stuff every single day. I promise you, it's still a ways out. I do have some big news that I was going to announce yesterday, did not get a chance to do it, so we will announce it today on ways that we can help, ways that we can actually get excited, get motivated, get ready for election season and be able to help out some of the elected officials or newly elected officials or potential elected officials here in our South Central Kansas area. But we are on TV, we are on radio, we are on Facebook Live, facebook.com/1480KQAM. Coming up on the program today at 7:30, we do have Jim Howell, the Sedgwick County Commissioner, at 7:30. We always love chatting with him every Wednesday. It is the last Wednesday of the month, meaning that I don't think they have a county commission meeting, but we'll still chat with him about what's happening within the county. In the 8 o'clock hour, I mentioned it yesterday, and I couldn't remember what day she was coming on, but she's coming on today, Sarah Lee Parrish. She's an attorney, also director of the Oklahoma Cannabis Trade Association. Yeah, we're going to get into that a little bit, talking about the marijuana deal down in Oklahoma. Did you realize over 2,000 people, shocker, right? 2,000 people, over 2,000 people, almost 3,000, have applied to try and become licensed to grow marijuana in Oklahoma. So we'll talk about that issue a little bit. We'll talk about the details of what the bill actually looked like in Oklahoma, the final bill, and how many people are actually going to get licensed and all that stuff. So Sarah Lee Parrish will be joining us from the Oklahoma Cannabis Trade Association at 8 a.m. Should be kind of a fun conversation. So that's kind of a lineup today. It is open lines to you as well, 316-721-8255. We have a lot to get to with, I'm sure you saw the Wichita Eagles story. Yes, we will cover it. Yes, we will talk about it with the superintendent for USD 259, the Wichita area. Shocker, just got a $12,000 salary increase, putting her over $300,000. Now, we don't have enough money for teachers. We don't have enough money for anything else in the school district, but we have enough money to be able to pay the superintendent $308,000. With the end of the year bonuses and with everything else that comes along with that. So we will talk about that in the 7 o'clock hour. Stay tuned in for that one. Let's go to the phones, though. It is open lines to you this morning, and I want to hear what's on your mind. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Eddie.
Hey, good morning, Eddie. How are you, sir?
Oh, I just want to let you know that your television is picture perfect, audio perfect. Everything is up and running.
Fantastic. So it is running. So it's just the internet feed then that's a little sketchy. So it's not showing like a little glitch freezing temporarily sort of thing on TV. We are running nice and smooth.
No, everything's picture perfect, and you're looking really pretty. So
hey, there we go. I love it. Well, I appreciate that. At least it's running good on the TV side. Very good, Eddie. I thank you very much for that. Good. So at least we're running smooth on there. Speaking of TV, one of the big announcements that I kind of wanted to talk about is, first off, we love being on KGPT TV. We love being able to simulcast every day. I don't know other markets, local markets, that actually do a radio and TV simulcast. Usually that's kind of a syndicated thing for syndicated talk shows. So you see a lot of the sports guys do it. If you watch ESPN or if you watch Fox Sports or any of that stuff, they do that sort of thing now. TV, we're starting to do it a little bit on the political side. Joe Peggs does that with Newsmax a little bit. But we're really, really excited to do this in a local market. I'm going to be working with KGPT TV a little bit more during election season. We are going to be partnering up and doing a couple special episodes or special programs, 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know how many it's going to be yet, still working on the details of election coverage. We're going to talk to some of the candidates. We'll break down the election a little bit, and I'm really excited to do a couple special programs with KGPT TV in order to do an hour-long program, 2 or 3 hour-long programs to be able to talk about the election leading up to. So more details coming soon. We are in the works with that. I'm really, really excited to work on that here soon because I think as long as we can get more and more and more information out on the election, the breakdown, the candidates, the names, the platforms, then you have a better chance of understanding as you go to the voting booth. So stay tuned in for that. More information to come as we start working on some more details with them. Plus, we do have a guest tomorrow that we're going to have on the show today. I'm not going to tease it yet, but she's going to be coming on as a special kind of a special fundraiser awareness sort of thing for local community here. And I'm going to be working with them a little bit on this. So it's going to be fun. We're going to get involved in the community a little bit more that way as well. Not from the political side, but from the non-political side. More information to come on that. Stay tuned in tomorrow. I want to start off with the show today. Enough with the PSA stuff. I want to start off with the show today. Kind of an interesting story, and it's not necessarily political, but it does kind of tie into kind of the social issues that we talk about here on the show with entitlement programs and with the entitlement mentality from some of the left-wing progressives. And it was on Fox News yesterday, and I had to laugh. I had to kind of chuckle at this. This was on foxnews.com. A bride cancels wedding, breaks up with fiance after friends and family refuse to pay $60,000 to attend the wedding. Now, this woman, which, I mean, you always hear about like the bride monsters or whatever, the crazy brides that go nuts during the wedding. My wife and I were awesome. We actually went and we flew off to Vegas for a weekend and we just eloped and we did our thing and we came back and it was over. That's all we did. At the time, the families weren't necessarily like the most friendly to each other. And we just, I was like, you know what? It's our wedding. We don't need to spend a whole lot of money. We don't have a whole lot of money. Let's just go and let's just go and get eloped. That's what we did. But some families absolutely love to have the big, elegant, elaborate weddings, and it's a lot of money. This woman, a long-winded tirade on social media blaming her friends and family for canceling her dream $60,000 wedding, and now it's going viral on social media. The bizarre story, according to Fox News, has received a massive response after being shared on Facebook and Reddit by a woman who identified as the bride's cousin. The Facebook post starts with, quote, "It comes with great sadness that I'm announcing the cancellation of my blankety-blank wedding. I apologize for canceling only 4 days beforehand." Now, why would you cancel your wedding? If someone can't afford to go, because she was, here's what came down to. She was asking every member of her friends and family to pay $1,500 per person to attend the wedding. The bride, identified as Susan, revealed that she and her fiancé had broken up due to some recent and irreparable problems before going on to blame her friends and family for ruining her blankety-blank marriage and her life. We managed to save up nearly $15,000 for a wedding. Since our love was like a fairy tale, we wanted an extravagant blowout wedding where our son could be included. Just to let you know, I was included in my parents' wedding. We met my father when I was I don't even remember, I was like 7 or 8, and I was the ring bearer for the wedding. I was involved in that. Wasn't very expensive, just FYI. We managed to save up nearly $15,000. We started touring venues, and we were torn between two. A local psychic told us to go to the more expensive option, and we thought, why the heck not? The bride went on to say during her foul-mouthed rant that the couple needed their grand $60,000 wedding was a little push. Our dream wedding was about $60,000, all included flight to Aruba, and we asked for a little help from our friends and family to make it happen. We asked for specifically cash gifts, and how could we have our wedding that we dreamed of without proper funding? We'd sacrificed so much, and all we asked was each guest bring around $1,500. Only 4 individuals actually signed up. Nobody else actually responded. Nobody else actually sent the money, and she got upset. She ended up canceling the wedding. Her husband ended up suggesting that they fly to Las Vegas and just get married over the weekend. And then she went on the whole tirade about being called a blankety-blank, loose woman and so on and so forth, and you can't do that, and how dare you, and then ended up breaking up with her boyfriend, soon-to-be husband, and there it is. The entitlement mentality. It was the dream love. It was obviously not, because they already broke up, but it was the dream love. It was the dream romance. We're going to have this big elaborate wedding. It's only $60,000, and you should be paying $1,500 to come to my wedding. So the question I have for you is, the bridezillas, as you like to call them at times, have you seen some of these scenarios? And would you pay $1,500 to go to a family or your best friend's wedding? $1,500. 316-721-8255. I'd love to hear this. I mean, maybe she needs a lesson from Dave Ramsey on budgeting. $15,000 is a very elaborate wedding, I would say. My wife and I spent $1,000. Because that's all the money we had at the time. $1,000, flew for a 3-day weekend in Las Vegas, and that was it. It was a good time. It was fun. And that included, by the way, the airplane ticket and the hotel, and then like one massive buffet where we gorged ourselves because that was all that we could afford. And that was pretty awesome. And then we just kind of did some other things along the way. We're still waiting on, by the way, a honeymoon. Have not had that yet. We're going on our 6th-year anniversary in September. Actually, next Friday is our wedding anniversary. That's crazy already. But 6 years, and we have yet to have a honeymoon. It's going to happen one of these days. I mean, we're going to plan on this in the next couple of years and do the whole like renewing our vows sort of thing, do a honeymoon, have some fun, whatever. But that was kind of our honeymoon, was flying out for a 3-day weekend to Vegas, spending $1,000 and racking up the last little bit of credit cards that we actually had. That's what our wedding was. But no, we need to do it. They saved up $15,000. They needed to spend $60,000. And how dare you not spend $1,500 to sign up to go to somebody's wedding? Let me just tell you something. I may love my family. I may love my best friends. I would never spend $1,500 to go to a wedding. Just saying. Would you do this, even if it was your family, if it was your child? Now, I get it that you'd actually be spending a lot more money probably getting the wedding set if you were part of the family, the immediate family with the parents or so on and so forth. But let's say that you were the grandparents. Would you spend $1,500 to go to your grandkid's wedding because that's what they said you had to spend in order to go to your grandchild's wedding? I don't know if you would do that. Here's a card. Congratulations, jerk. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones here. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Pete.
Hey, good morning, Pete. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. After listening to this gal's got to be a liberal. I mean, who else would hit people up for donations?
Oh, well,
like
of course.
That?
I mean, come on. This is probably now they say that her name is Susan on here. That's probably protecting her name. I'm guessing that it's Chelsea, and it probably has a Clinton on the back of the name because, they ran out of funds through the Clinton Foundation. So when she got married, this is probably the renewing of the vows, and they ran out of cash, so they were asking for $1,500. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, and if to answer your question, you asked, would I pay $1,500 to go to any family member's wedding? Not only no, but hell no.
So what would you do? Would you just send a card and be like, congrats, and then like in the tiny corner, like as a disclaimer at the very bottom where they can't read it, write like jerk on there or something?
Well, I probably wouldn't be so subtle. Now, given this woman's proclivities, the way she's explaining why she won't do what she wants to do, I think if I were the man, I'd be wiping the sweat off my brow, thanking my lucky stars that I broke up with this woman.
Well, and then there's
the marriage is off, because that would be a lifetime of sheer terror. The term high maintenance comes to mind.
Well, and that's what it is. I mean, they go on to say that the reason that she wanted this elaborate thing was because she's recently been addicted to watching the Kardashians, and she wanted to live a fancy, lively wedding and a reception with the Kardashians, and that's why she wanted this big elaborate thing. They did show their desperation after nobody actually signed up. They resend invitations and ask for people to just seriously write whatever they could, like what's $1,000? It can't clearly be a whole lot. They also set up a GoFundMe that did receive $250, and at that point they were exhausted and tired, and she went off and criticized all her family and friends, canceled the wedding 4 days before and broke up with her boyfriend because how dare you? I want to be like a Kardashian and I want to actually have this elaborate wedding and a nice honeymoon. How dare you actually kill my dreams, you bunch of jerks?
She wants to be a Kardashian. Now, how low is that?
Here's the thing. I mean, if you have the money, then I guess why not? If you don't have the money, then I guess you better not try and live that lifestyle.
Well, she's completely forgotten. She needs a reality check. I mean, I almost feel sorry for this woman the more I hear about her. She needs a reality check on just what is a marriage really about.
Well, and that's what it is. I know that women like to plan the dream wedding and plan this elaborate thing, and guys are just like, yeah, whatever. But, I mean, it is. It really comes down to who is it for? Is it for you because it's really important to you to get married, or is it for the big show for everybody else to enjoy? Again, I mean, I grew up very traditional to where it was in the church and we had everybody there and everybody, it was a big ordeal and a big, reception at the end of it. And it was a little bit of a difference for me when my wife and I decided, hey, we don't have a whole lot of money and why not just fly to Vegas and just elope with just the two of us? I kind of enjoyed it because it was nothing more than just the importance of her and I getting married. And that's all it was about.
Well, my wife and I have been married for 24 plus years. And one thing I can tell you is it's a work in progress. Every day is a work in progress.
Sure.
It's never perfect, but you're always working to make it perfect. And the wedding itself is just the beginning. It's the gateway, I guess you would, to the rest of your life. And if you want to have a big flash in the pan, that's all well and good, but then reality sets in. And if you have that big flash in the pan and you wake up, 2 weeks later and your spouse has got a head cold and looks like the wreck of the Hesperus, you're going to be going, you're going to be in for a big letdown.
Well, then there's that. Well, that's very true. Pete, I appreciate it very much. I mean, it does really drive home the importance of, focusing on the right priorities, not investing all the eggs in one basket at the beginning instead of actually planning on the long term. But it's just the entitlement mentality. And that we talk about the millennials, we talk about the entitlement, we talk about the participation trophy, we talk about everything being handed to many individuals. This is the mentality it creates. How dare you not give me the elaborate wedding? How dare you not want to spend $1,500 to come to my wedding? You're a bunch of jerks, you family, you best friends. The maid of honor, who is supposed to be the bride's best friend, the bestie that they've had for a long time, was supposed to invest $5,000 into the wedding as well. The maid of honor backed out of that, and then the wife, the bride, was going to be bride, ended up calling her a bunch of names, hung up on her, and broke off that friendship as well. Showing again that entitlement mentality. Let's not allow that to kind of flood through society. But again, we all need to be like the Kardashians, right? Yeah, 25 minutes past the hour. It is a hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday. Lots to get to today. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Kind of what I want to do in the morning. What do you say? 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. That's the way we start off our morning, the best way every single morning. Right here on The Voice of Reason. We got bottom of the hour news coming up in just a second. Some more calls on the line. Don't go anywhere. We'll get to you as soon as we come back from the bottom of the hour. I do want to shift gears a little bit, too, when we come back, as you were right. We were right in the speculation of why we see a certain individual or some individuals jumping from the Jeff Collier campaign over to the Greg Orman campaign. We'll talk about that when we come back. Plus, lots more to get to today on a freedom-loving Wednesday. Big news today as well. Stay tuned. This is The Voice of Reason on a Wednesday.
If Andy drives you nuts,
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
let him know. Call the show, 721-8255. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome into it. It is a Wednesday, hashtag Freedom Loving Wednesday, starting off your morning the best way that we know how to do so, which is, the right way. Interpret that how you'd like to do so. We are so confident in our conservatism, we're 98% sure of our gender identification. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Nice and cool this morning. Kind of dig it, kind of enjoy it. We'll see how long that actually lasts. Let's go to the phones here. Your phone calls this morning, 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Hey, good morning, Scott. How are you, sir?
Well, I seem to have heard on the television news last night further evidence of the police state, because they were talking about the police writing an ordinance for the city council on after-hour clubs. And I was thinking, I said, well, now, police's job is not to write ordinances. Their job is to enforce ordinances and laws of the state. So I'm kind of wondering now, why are they doing something that the city council was elected to do? They're the ones supposed to create ordinances for whatever reason.
Well, I'll have to look and see. I'll have to look and see about them actually writing an ordinance. I don't think the police are allowed to or able to write an ordinance. Now,
that's what the news reported. The news reported that they were writing the ordinance for the city council to sign.
Well, what I think they're doing.
City council does that?
Well, what I think they're doing is I don't know if you heard or not yesterday. We talked to Brian Fry from the Wichita City Council yesterday, and what he had said was that the fire department and the police department are looking into and investigating and giving more intel on what's actually happening, on what they recommend that actually happens because of these after hours venues after 2 a.m. when all the bars close down, and then these other venues where we're not regulating it. They're violating fire codes. We don't have any safe exits. We have individuals that are underage that are getting into these places. They're paying fees. They're paying dues to be able to walk into the door, and then they're getting alcohol sort of thing. So I don't think they're writing ordinances. They're recommending between the fire department with fire code and with law enforcement with what's legal. They're looking at these after hour venues and then suggesting recommendations on what they see ways in order to try and regulate these a little bit better to make sure that they're actually abiding by the law. Fire departments and law enforcement are not able to actually write ordinances. They can just suggest what they'd like to see be done, and then the city council looks at it to decide what's actually going to happen or not.
Well, maybe the news was, we know it's fake news around here, but that's what they reported. And the other thing about it is they were talking about licensing something, and I said, well, now you got clubs that close at 2 o'clock. They got licenses, and that hasn't stopped anybody from getting shot. So, or banks or whatever other place where people get shot at. So a license is not going to stop anybody from getting shot. It just happened at a certain situation at a certain time, and then that escalates. But, licenses have never stopped anybody from getting killed.
Well, that's true. That's true. And if we want to get into that discussion, then we would definitely look at more or less gun control regulations to where we can actually defend ourselves, or whether we beef up more security at these certain venues or whatever the case is. But you're right. We still see shootings, but I don't think that's necessarily what they're talking about with concerns. Is that a concern? Absolutely. But especially with these after hours, if we're seeing 17 and 18-year-old kids getting into these venues, paying at the door and then walking in and getting alcohol, if they're breaking fire code because they don't have proper exits, or they're cramming too many people into these venues without proper exit procedure, then those are right now the concerns that they have about what's actually happening in these venues, because it's just kind of a newer thing from what I've heard that's sort of popped up. I didn't know that we had after-hour venues here in Wichita. That's, as Brian said yesterday, that's kind of a bigger city thing.
Wichita. They've had after-hours in Wichita for years. It's just been an on and off thing. But, they've had after-hours even back in the 70s.
Sure.
But, like I say, only thing difference is that, like I say, the city just trying to find an opportunity to make them some money. So they want to license everything so they can get some money out of it. Because just like I say, it's never stopped anybody from getting shot having a license for anything.
Well, I see your point there. I appreciate the call, Scott. I mean, I see the need to kind of keep tabs on it. I mean, if you're going to have a venue where a bunch of people are crammed in there, if something happens, we don't want them to be, not have the proper procedure there. Again, I was one of those. I never went to those after-hour things, so I don't know what they look like or how many people are there or what goes on in those places, because if you do close down the bar, which even in college times, I closed down the bar very, very few times, was never one that liked to be like, oh, it's 3 a.m., what else can I do? And I'm usually those where by like midnight, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of done. I'm ready for bedtime. But if ready for bedtime, kids. But if you are one of those that like to be 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and be like, hey, what else is going on out there? Usually what you would do is you would go to a house party, and there, I mean, I got no problem with whatever happens there. It's private property. You kind of doing your own thing and whatever. I don't really care. But if it's a public venue and it is, the underground fight club kind of thing, then yeah, I think we need to keep kind of tabs on that. Now, it's not necessarily for the benefit or for the revenue generating for the city, but it is, I think, for at least to keep some people safe, even if they're doing really stupid things. Again, there's a difference, though, between a public venue and a public building and a private house party, to where 50 people cram into a house and be like, hey, let's do stupid stuff. There is a difference there, and I don't care if you go to the house party, but they are concerned that there's a fire code violation or that there's underage people doing things, and then if there's shootings or whatever that go along with that as well, then that's something that we need to crack down on. We'd like to see less shootings in the city. I mean, I know this is the biggest city in the state, and crime's obviously going to happen, unfortunately, but we're small enough to where we can hopefully be able to keep a tab on some of these things. I'd like to think as well. I don't know. Maybe we've grown too big. Maybe we've gotten too big. Maybe we've gotten to the point to where there's just going to be that ongoing shenanigans, and there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, the law enforcement, we are adding 30, 40 different new officers into the force here soon, as we did pass the city budget. Is it right? Some agree with it. Some don't agree with it. Whatever. I mean, they suggest and they recommend that we need that amount of police force. If we are going to increase that force, I'd like to be able to focus more on the crimes that are actually happening like that, like shootings going on in the city, like the underground fight clubs that are happening that we maybe need to break up, as opposed to saying, hey, you got a traffic violation. You were going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. I'd like to make sure that we actually appropriate this accordingly. I'd like to at least make sure that we have our priorities set to where if you are a few mile an hour over the speed limit, that's not necessarily the big generating revenue moneymaker for the city, as opposed to saying, hey, you're doing drugs. Hey, you're doing something really bad in the community. Hey, you're committing a felony. You're robbing stores. You're shooting people. You're doing terrible things. Let's focus on that stuff. I don't necessarily care that someone's driving 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. We need to have our priorities straight. And we've gone down that road about talking about the revenue for the cities, and many towns across the country actually use the traffic tickets as their revenue maker for the city. The town of Morrison, if you remember the suburb of Denver that I used to drive through all the time going home from Denver up into the mountains, 60% of their city budget for the town of Morrison was from traffic violations. That's not right. It's not supposed to be a moneymaker. It's supposed to be just one of those, hey, slap on the wrist because you were going 20 miles an hour over the speed limit, not 5. That's what we need to focus on. And I think that's what we need to do. And hopefully most of the law enforcement are like, you know what? Let's focus on the priorities here. Let's focus on the priorities here. If there is a shooting, let's crack down on that. Let's come in swarms. Let's address it. Let's deal with it. Let's take care of that community. Let's make sure it doesn't happen again. And then let's move on. Not say, I'd love to be able to address that, but I do have more people on the force that are out actually enforcing the traffic. So that way, if you cross lines and you actually merge into traffic without a blinker, then we're going to come down and get you, my friends. I'd like to see some priority difference changes there. That's just me. Maybe people love the fact that we actually enforce traffic violations to a T, and if you drive 5 miles an hour over, then you see that $120 ticket. I personally think that's a little waste and it's a little ridiculous. Let's focus on the other issues like human trafficking and drugs and crime and shootings and all that kind of stuff. Then maybe we could see a bit of change. I don't know. That's just me, though. Your thoughts. 316-721-8255. Line number 2, let's go to it. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Richard.
Hey, good morning, Richard. How are you, sir?
We have had in Wichita and Sedgwick County, we have had after-hours clubs clear back in the 40s and 50s, and nothing's changed. What they need to change is the establishment laws. Why does a bar have to close at 1, 2, 3 o'clock, whatever time they have to close? If you're working second and third shift and you don't get off till midnight, your day's just actually starting. That's why the after-hour clubs come about, is because people are not ready to go home. But our city fathers that at once upon a time that didn't drink, didn't smoke, and
so you need to be out there by 2 a.m. Yeah,
you don't need to be out there. Well, there's some people that are legit. When I used to work second shift, I didn't get off at midnight, 1 o'clock. Most of the bars closed at that time at midnight.
Sure.
And so I was out running around trying to find stuff to do. Yes, there were after-hours clubs at that point, too. And they need to focus on that, and that will shut a lot of the after-hours, so to speak, clubs down. But
that's a great point.
If you got gambling in a house, that's going to go on regardless. And
sure.
But they need to change the laws. Why shouldn't I be able to get a drink at 3 o'clock in the morning if I choose to?
That's a great point. I'm with you there. I mean, I don't know why we need to have some kind of rule. I know they try and say that it's for noise violations. That if there's a bar and there's some kind of residential area near it, then we have a curfew for that. Or if there's concerts, I mean, I love going to my concerts, and obviously the place is kind of booming and kind of the thing, and we need to wrap it up by midnight, sort of thing, with the noise violation. But I'm with you. I mean, let's just extend that and just say you can close whenever you want to, whether it's 2 a.m., whether it's 4 a.m. We are moving in the right direction, allowing the sale of liquor at 6 a.m. now, so that way some of the restaurants you can actually go, if you are working second shift or third shift and you actually want to get off and go out, that you can now at 6:45 in the morning, at whatever time it is right now, that you can go out, you can get some breakfast after work, and you can have a drink if you choose to do so. So I think we are working in the right direction, but I'm with you. Why not just extend the hours and let a bar stay open as long as they actually want to? And if they choose to close at 2, then they can, but if they choose to close at 5 a.m., then that's their prerogative as well. So, I think we dropped Richard there. Appreciate the phone call, my friend. Really good point. I'd be in favor of that as well. Not sure why we do that, but, got to have our hands in the control to let people know what we can and cannot do, right? 316-721-8255. Interesting conversation. Appreciate the call, Scott and Richard there. Let's take a break, wrap up hour number 1. We got a lot to get to, not necessarily what we were going to go into this segment, but, it was a fun conversation. When we come back, I want to get into the election real quickly about some of the updates on what's going on to let you know as we go into Governor's Race 2018. It is a freedom-loving Wednesday here on The Voice of Reason. Stay tuned.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
7 minutes to the top of the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason on a Wednesday. Good morning to you. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. So, if you remember, yesterday, 2 days ago, whatever it was, Steve Backus, I believe it was yesterday, the former chairman of the campaign for Governor Jeff Collier, ended up leaving and endorsing Greg Orman. And we talked about why, what was the purpose, what could possibly have gone on there, why didn't he embrace the Republican candidate? Well, come to find out, the reasoning is, shocker, and we all kind of called it and assumed, was that he has left in order to jump on board and become a part of the campaign for Greg Orman, the independent candidate. So, shocker there. He ended up leaving and working for the campaign, which is why he ended up endorsing him. Again, Governor Jeff Collier coming out and making the statement saying that he knew nothing about it, and that was it. He has endorsed Chris Kobach, and that's just the way it is for Republicanism. We are going to try and get Greg Orman back on the show. We are going to try and get Laura Kelly on the show. Plus, I am working still to try and get James Thompson on the show. Last week, after we were a little harsh on why he won't come on the program, we did get an email saying that there was a potential that he could still come on the show. So we are working on details with that. Stay tuned in for more information to see if that actually happens or not. But according to, let's talk about Governor Jeff Collier for just a minute, as he is, obviously on the way out since he did not get the Republican nomination, and he'll be out by the end of this year. Topeka, in Topeka, according to the Associated Press, I don't know if you saw this or not, but a task force was created by Governor Jeff Collier just a few weeks ago, recommending that the Kansas now this is the task force, not Governor Collier, but this is the task force created by Governor Collier, but they're recommending the Kansas legislature expand Medicaid to include an estimated 150,000 uninsured Kansans. Call me shocked that this task force, whatever the task force was there to do, supposedly. Now, from what I've heard from the inside scoop, from inside the politics, and from different legislators, was that the task force was created a few weeks ago, and the original intent of this was to talk about mental health issues, was to talk about substance abuse problems, and that was the purpose of it. It wasn't about Medicaid. It wasn't about certain programs. It was about specifically being able to address substance abuse problems in Kansas and being able to address mental health issues in Kansas. Well, it's gone back and forth, and when some individuals, from what I've heard, again, this is just rumor, what I've heard, when they tried to bring up the idea of Medicaid, they shut down the task force. They just completely shut it down, say, we don't want anything to do with that. We don't want it to be tied into Medicaid. We want it to be just a serious discussion about what to do about substance abuse in Kansas and about mental health problems in Kansas. And when they brought up Medicaid, it ended up being shut down, and they dismantled the task force. So I don't know if this is the same task force as before or if it's a new task force with certain individuals not on there that didn't want it to be tied into Medicaid. But now the task force did come out, and they recommended that when we talk about helping people with substance abuse problems, along with mental health problems, according to the Topeka Capital Journal, on Thursday's vote last week, that the task force recommends that they expand Medicaid in the state of Kansas for the 2019 session. Now, it's funny because it doesn't have anything to do with Governor Brownback, but at the same time, it does have something to do with Governor Brownback, or not Governor Brownback, but Governor Jeff Collier, because Governor Jeff Collier created the task force, put the people together for the task force, and this is what their response came out with. Now, I don't know what his response is to that, and say, yeah, no, sorry, but it's a really bad idea to expand Medicaid. I don't know if it's a good idea, and he's like, hey, well, if that's what they say, then we just got to do that. I don't know, so we'll have to get Governor Collier on the show to talk about the task force and the idea just a little bit. But as you know, expanding Medicaid is not a bright idea. They tried it about 3 or 4 times in the last session, and with a little bit more conservative-leaning legislature potentially this year, getting through the general election, if we get back up there, then I don't see it obviously happening to expand Medicaid. And I really hope this isn't a conversation that's going to be brought up often in this next session. We have bigger fish to fry. Like, I don't know, a 2-year budget getting on track. But Senator Barbara Boyer, she's the one, by the way, that got kicked off some of the different committees from Susan Wagle after she endorsed some Democrats. A Mission Hills Republican says that an estimated 1/3 of people eligible for expanded Medicaid have addiction issues. The legislature voted last year to broaden the eligibility for Medicaid, but then Governor Sam Brownback vetoed. Collier, who replaced Brownback, also opposes the expanding of Medicaid. So why would the task force that Governor Collier put in place advocate for the expansion of, and they're already trying to set it up? Now, I'm almost wondering if this isn't trying to be like the whole setup to fail. More conservative legislature, potentially conservative governor again, and then they say, look at this, they hate poor people. We'll talk about some more of that when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Speak. It's time for Reason.
These are the ones that are trying to get illegal aliens to be able to vote in our elections. This is the party trying to get people who are actually incarcerated at the time to actually vote. This is the same party that doesn't want voter ID laws, and now they're saying, the county's missed it by a day. Sorry, you can't get those voted. You got to be removed off the ballots. So you want them to be able to vote. You just don't want them to be able to sign a petition to get one of your opponents on the ballot as a candidate.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. The days just keep getting better and better. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 On the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting as well on TV, KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good morning. Welcome aboard. Great to have you along today. Man, we're kicking you-know-what and having fun and doing the thing, advancing conservatism on a daily basis. Welcome in 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, we'd love to hear from you today. We are on Facebook Live as well, facebook.com/1480. KQAM. Coming up on the show, bottom of the hour, Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner. He'll be joining us as he does every Wednesday. In the 8 o'clock hour, Sarah Lee Parrish. She's an attorney. She's also director of the Oklahoma Cannabis Trade Association as we talk about marijuana in Oklahoma and the number of people that have actually tried to apply to grow marijuana in Oklahoma. Some of the details of the actual law, what you can do, what you can't do, all that good stuff. We'll talk about that coming up in just an hour from now. But until then, it is open line to you at 316-721-8255. I'm sure you saw the news. Why not? Let's talk about it. Big news of the day, of course. If you watch or read the Wichita Eagle, another shenanigan story. As you know, we've been talking about USD 500, USD 512, Shawnee Mission, Kansas City, that area, and the number of where the money's going when it comes to those school districts and the different areas, genres, administrators, superintendents, maintenance, the custodian, whatever, where the money's actually being increased for salary or additional spending. This is the money where we just increased it by $530 some odd million dollars for the state for educational finance that Governor Collier ended up signing. The legislature passed more money being sunk into education. And this is the money that went in at the end of last legislative session where the Supreme Court said that they may have to call in the special session. They didn't. They said that it was actually suitable now, but now that we need to address it based on inflation, that's what we're talking about. Now, this is the additional money that was supposed to go to teachers because remember, that's the argument. We don't have enough money for teachers. We've gone over this over and over and over again. We've looked at the numbers from USD 500. We've looked at the numbers from USD 512. That's in Shawnee Mission and in Kansas City. Now let's look at USD 259 here in the Wichita area. Shocker. Call me shocked. Call me surprised. Big story from the Wichita Eagle. Another raise for Wichita superintendent puts her financial package above $300,000. Shocked that we actually see the money not go towards the teachers, not go towards the resources, not go towards everything else in the district that we need money for, but go towards the actual superintendent now making $307,000. A pay raise for Wichita teachers means it will mean another significant pay raise for the district's top administrator as well. They, of course, try and throw in there, we throw the bone to the teachers as well. We take care of them. But Superintendent Alicia Thompson will make an additional $12,344 a year, an increase of 4.85%. Same as last time. We'll give the teachers a 2% increase. We'll do the administrators and the superintendent a 5% increase. Why not? Which brings your total finance package to $307,524,000. Let me ask you something. If you're in the public sector, are you supposed to be making over $300,000? If you're on the taxpayer dime in an industry where they say it's being squeezed and we don't have enough money to actually keep the doors open or get proper resources in the classroom or get proper teacher pay and compensation for the teachers while they're educating our youth, is it really proper for us to be making over $300,000? And if they offer it, should the superintendent be like, thanks, but I'd really like this to go towards some of the resources in the classroom. I'd really like that $15,000 to be reinvested into this. It may be a little bit compared to where we're spending on other things. It may be small and significant, but still, I'd like it to go there. If she did that, I'd have a little more respect for the school district. I'd have a little bit more, say, thanks for the offer. I'm making just under $300,000. I don't know if I'm going to be able to survive, but I'm going to, tighten up the girdle a little bit and just, make it do. I'm going to make do on this. And then, be able to, whatever money that you're trying to offer me again, it may have been in my contract that I got that raise. It may have said that I was going to do this annual review or whatever after looking at it, because I am relatively new, meaning the superintendent, Alicia Thompson. I may be relatively new, but, it may have been in my contract for an annual review. I'm really feeling guilty that we're not investing it into the classroom as we're complaining and suing the state for more money, that we should apply every little cent that we have into the classroom. You know what I almost wonder if it is? I don't know if I should say this or not. I'm going to get in trouble. No, I'm not going to say it. It doesn't matter. It's just the fact that this is ridiculous. It doesn't matter who it is. This is ridiculous. You're in the public sector. It's kind of like running for office. If you're a politician, you know that you're not going to be making a whole lot of money. If you're involved in politics, you know you're not going to be making a whole lot of money. If you're in radio, you know you're going to not be making a whole lot of money. I'm just saying, there's certain industries where you go into it because you love it, not because you're making bank. That's all I'm saying. If you're there for the children, if you're there for the youth, if you're there for the schooling, if you're there for the education, if you're there to help the next generation get up, then you're not in it for the money. Why in the world would we have superintendents making over $300,000 while we're complaining and whining and throwing fits and suing the taxpayers for more taxpayer money? I'm just saying. This is getting out of hand. And I think even the individuals that are all about spending more money on education are starting to say, wait a second, this is getting a little out of hand. I thought that we just spent $530 some odd million additionally in education in order to take care of the teachers, because that's what you said you needed it for. Then we see stories like this. Then we read the stories from the Kansas Policy Institute, from the Shawnee Mission District and the Wichita, or the Kansas City District, and all these other school districts that are increasing not the teachers, but custodians and maintenance, and then superintendents and administrators and deputy and superintendents and everything else down the line. You don't see the teachers actually on there. One of them we saw at the librarian. That's cool, thanks. Or the head librarian for all the libraries of the entire school district. You don't see the local librarians actually getting raises. In fact, if I remember correctly, last year we shortened our school year by 2 weeks here in the Wichita area because we were either going to have to do that or cut the librarians, right? Because the librarians weren't making enough money because we didn't have enough money to pay the librarians. But we can afford a $13,000 raise for the superintendent of the Wichita School District, right? The contract announced by district union and union officials earlier this month raised the teacher pay by 3.65% and includes compensation for additional experience and education known as steps and tracks. Well, we did raise it by 3%. Hooray. I feel better about that, but at least we raised the superintendents by 4.8. The administrators and the superintendent need to have a little bit higher bump pay than the teachers do. That's really what it is. They make way more money, but as the teachers go up, then they have to go up as well, or else they feel really unfair. They have to go to their safe space. They have to cry about it because then they don't get a higher compensation increase than the teachers do, because it's got to be fair. Doesn't matter if they already make more, but it's got to be fair. I want to read some stats for you from the Wichita School District. USD 259. Right now, there are 54 elementary schools in the district. According to the website, according to what website is this? USD259.org. It's their website. Here's what it is. 54 elementary schools, 15 middle schools, 3 K through 8 schools, 9 high schools, 8 special schools, and 24 magnet programs. That's a lot of school buildings, right? Let's look at the teachers. There are 4,100 teachers. There are 2,360 support staff. Not sure what support staff is, but they need support. They need the helping hand to say, hey, attaboy, we're going to pat you on the rear and send you back onto the mound, right? 178 administrators and 51 office admins. Here's the big kicker. And this really drives it, which is why when we talk about unfairness, when we talk about distribution, when we talk about public programs, when we talk about the money being invested where it needs to be invested. And I'm sorry, this has got me really angry and frustrated because this is stupid. According to USD259.org, the OWN School District's website, when it comes to overcoming obstacles, according to their website, students that live in homes of poverty, students living in poverty is 73% of the school district. 73, 3/4 of the students going to school in the Wichita area, in the Wichita School District, School District 259, are in poverty, are waiting for their next meal, are wondering what's going to happen at home every single day. And while we talk about trying to overcome the home life with parents not necessarily invested in their children's future, not necessarily invested in what's happening at the school, and going home and taking care and spending that additional time with the children's education, not giving a damn, where the teachers feel obligated to have to bring snacks to feed the children because they're living in poverty. We have administrators and superintendents making over $300,000 because that's where we need to appropriate the money, right? Because that's where we need to take care of the kids, right? To have the top-heavy, nice little administrators being sunk in with all the money, and then we throw a fit, and we raise the taxes, and we put more burden on the taxpayer, and we raise the property tax, and we raise the income tax, and we raise the sales tax, and tell them that we're not spending enough money on our children. Because it's terrible that our children are living in poverty, not getting an education, and that the schools are run down, and that they don't have the resources, and that their books are outdated, and that they don't have anything in there. So we need to raise our taxes, put more of a burden on the families that are already living in poverty, trying to send their kids to school, while the administrators are sitting top heavy up there with a $300,000 annual salary. It's frustrating. It's angering. It's really kind of pushed my buttons today because that's uncalled for. And if you really cared about the children as the nice little sitting top heavy administrator or superintendent, you'd think, you know what, maybe, just maybe, I'm going to step back from this and I'm not going to accept that $15,000 raise or that $13,000 raise because I don't need it. I'm kind of okay right now. I want to run some numbers for you here for a second. $12,344 increase in the annual salary, pushing her salary up to over $307,000. If we would apply that $12,000, which I get it, it's a little money. It's a tiny bit. It's not much. I get it. Compared to the large district, 4,000 teachers, 2,000 support staff, 178 administrators, and 51 staff office admins. You know, tons of buildings, tons of classrooms. I get it. It's not very much, but $12,000. What could we do with $12,000 in the school district? Just buying crayons for the 54 elementary schools and the numerous students and the numerous different classrooms. Just buying crayons. I looked up at Walmart, you can buy crayons for $8.79 for a box, right? That could supply a box of crayons for 1,400 students. Just 1,400 elementary students that wouldn't have to have their parents not only pay the income tax and the property tax and the sales tax in order to get their kids to school, to keep the doors open because the Supreme Court told them it's really, really important, but then go and get the supplies with the backpack and with the Clorox wipes and with the Kleenex boxes and with the crayons and with the dry erase markers. Could have supplied a box of crayons for 1,400 elementary school students. Clorox wipes. Apparently that's on the list now. We had to buy some for my girl for preschool this year. Got to get Clorox wipes because the custodian and the maintenance expenses went up, but they can't afford Clorox wipes for the school building. $5.49 at the store. That could have supplied 2,248 cans of Clorox wipes that could have almost had a nice little can in every one of the 54 elementary school buildings and however many classrooms are in there. 2,200 different Clorox. No, I got to put it towards the administrator. Dry erase markers, $6 for a nice little six-pack. Could have supplied 2,055 different packages of dry erase markers that a teacher wouldn't have had to buy for their own classroom. That could have supplied it for nearly about half the teachers in the school district. But no, can't be doing that now. How about peanut butter crackers? Apparently 73% of the entire school district has kids living in poverty. They're going to school to eat their meals and have snacks. They have snacks at the younger kids' schools because, well, we need to feed them because they don't get fed necessarily at home and have the nutrition they need. That could have been close to 2,200 little packages of peanut butter crackers to feed to elementary school students. But no, that's not important. It's got to be the $308,000 for the superintendent, because that's where the money needs to be applied to. That's where the money needs to go, because that's going to make the kids healthy. That's going to make the kids smart. That's going to make the kids educated. That's going to make the teachers really happy, right? Unbelievable. I'll be right back.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
27 minutes past the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Let's go to the phones and get your thoughts. A lot of people wanting to call in, chime in on this. Line number 1, good morning. What's your name?
Good morning. This is Sean.
Hey, good morning, Sean. How are you?
Doing well. Hey, I think we're misplacing a few of the critical points here on the issue. And my commentary here is in no way to be interpreted as justifying the contract that our superintendent has. Mm-hmm. However, to think that she should turn that money back in is absolutely ridiculous. And the reason I say that is I worked for companies where I got a raise even though they were losing money. And the reason I accepted that raise is because I knew that if I left, it would cost them even more to replace me as far as my skill sets go. So, they would have to hire 1.5 of me at, 3/4 of my salary. That's a net more money to replace me. So, no, I don't ever apologize when somebody offers me a raise, and I don't think superintendent should do that either.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. Let's talk about that for just a second, though, right now. Is there a difference, do you think, between a private sector job and a public sector that's funded by taxpayers? And as we talk about the education, which, as you know, already isn't, because it's already 53% of our state budget. But if it is being squeezed a little bit and they don't have enough money, and the teachers in places where they say that they're really suffering on the financial part of it, as a public sector employee, as an individual who's going into a system where they know that there's not a lot of cash and they know that they're not there to be kind of a get-rich scheme kind of thing, and they're there for the teachers, then is it a little more acceptable to say, yeah, you know what, this can be applied elsewhere from the people who's paying the taxes, who are suffering and struggling already, to kind of apply this elsewhere?
Absolutely not. I disagree with that statement 100%.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. And the reason I say that is because people bring value, and whether it's public sector or not, you have to be paid for your value, okay? Even in nonprofits and whatnot, you get paid for what you bring to the table. Now, my anger, while in the whole situation, is actually with people that negotiated the contract.
Sure.
Those are the people we should be absolutely irate with. That they set up a contract with this lady, that would allow her to be paid $307,000 a year for this position.
That's a really good point. Sean, I hate to cut you off there, but you know what? We got to take a bottom of the hour break here. But no, you hit it right on there. We shouldn't necessarily even be upset with the superintendent. Could she give it up? Maybe. But you're right. The negotiation of the contract kind of reminds me of the people that Trump's dealing with trying to negotiate trade deals again. Got to take a bottom of the hour break. Stay here.
Weeding through the fake news on a daily basis.
I hope now you boys see that this is totally serial.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome into the Voice of Reason. Great to have you along today. 36 minutes past the hour is you're starting your day. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink right here on the Voice of Reason. Sean made a really good point. And as frustrated as I am with the superintendent for accepting this, and I'll still stay frustrated because I think that is a goodwill thing. Instead of saying, hey, we should continue on the litigation to sue for more money because we don't have enough money in school. We're sitting on record number of operational cash reserves just sitting there that we're not touching because we're scared when the schools might shut down, even though they're not going to shut down. While we're continuously fighting for higher taxes, we're going to come to the people for property tax increases. We want income tax increases. And then we turn around and say, oh, yeah, well, 73% of our students live in poverty-stricken families, which is ridiculous for an entire school district. 73%. that I think that there should be kind of a good faith sort of thing of like, you know, I was promised by my contract this 4%, 6%, whatever increase for my salary, making it over $300,000+, but maybe I should just kind of walk away from that and let it be applied to certain things and do it as a PR tactic. Do it to say, hey, you know what, teachers, you're going through a lot. We didn't give you nearly as much. I got a nice little 4.8% raise. You're only getting a 3.6% raise because you're a teacher and you're not as important as me. But you know what? I'm going to do a good faith thing. And, you know, here is Clorox wipes for 2,200 cans of Clorox wipes to go to half the teachers in the school district. That would be a sign of good faith to me. But Sean brings up a really good point, is the fact that, you know what, let's actually apply it. We need to put the pressure on the people that actually negotiate the contracts and the ones that actually do the budgeting for the district, and that is the school board. The school board negotiates that contract, which means when they said, yeah, you know what, we're going to love giving you over $300,000 as a superintendent, while we continue to say that, yeah, you people who are living in poverty, who are struggling, 73% of the students in poverty, not having enough money, yeah, heck with you guys. We need to raise your taxes because you need to spend more money. We do have our guest on the line, but I want to sneak in one more phone call before we shift gears just for a minute here. Line number 2, good morning. What's your name?
Hi, good morning. My name's Annette.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine. And in my opinion, teachers are just used as props because it's every year. The teachers don't get any raises. They're, so every year it's for the teachers. They're the props they put up. But they don't have to be accountable for where the money goes. It's like, take the money and run. We've got it. We can put it where we want to.
Sure.
And as far as the low income, the teachers I know that work grade schools and high schools are amazed at the amount of low-income children that have cell phones, the nice ones.
That's a great point.
So what are they doing? They don't have money to feed their children, but they've got money for monthly cell phone payments and to buy a good cell phone.
Sure.
In the meantime, they want you to buy double everything so they can give it to these young children whose parents can't afford it.
That's a really good point. I mean, they're coming in with their earbuds and with their notepads, with their electronic notepads, and with their, as you mentioned, with their nice fancy cell phones, and they got the unlimited data, and they're playing games and everything. But they can't afford to be able to get shoes and be able to give them food at the end of the day, nor can they focus on helping them with their education at home. It's up to the teachers. How dare you teachers not give them everything and take care of all of them? And by the way, you need to get snacks for them as well. The teachers need to spend all their money on this that they make, even though it's not necessarily as much. But, you know, we really need to focus the money on the administrative side because, well, that way we can ask for more money because the teachers are still suffering.
Correct. You know, it used to be Kleenexes. Now they've gone to Kleenexes and wet wipes.
Mm-hmm.
Yay, public education. All right.
I appreciate the call very much. Excellent point. Yay, public education. I tell you, I've never seen it before, that the fact that we actually have my kid, my daughter's in preschool now. She's 4. She's in preschool. She's and the teacher's asked for the Clorox wipes. And we got her the Clorox wipes. We got them. It just made me think, like, why? It's like, really? Yeah, it used to be just the Kleenex boxes. I would bring the 2 boxes of Kleenexes at the beginning of the year, and we'd have enough for the whole school year. Now it's the Clorox wipes as well. But, you know, teachers, we got to get more money for them. And we do. It's just be nice if we actually applied the money there when we actually got that additional $530-some-odd million from state funding. On the phone with us, it is that time. We do it every single week. I am excited to have him back on the program. Sedgwick County Commissioner Mr. Jim Howell with us. Jim, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well, Andy, and I'm enjoying the cool weather that's supposed to be coming up, I guess.
It's nice today. I walked outside this morning, and I actually basked in it a little bit. I've been helping out on some stuff, and I'm going to announce it later in the show, but walking around last night in 96-degree weather was a little brutal. I'm ready for fall time now.
Well, it is that time of year for some of us that are out knocking doors, and we get to enjoy that in the evening. Get home, wring out our shirts, and so it's been kind of a fun time to let them knock doors in this kind of heat.
That it has, and we haven't really talked about yours, but you didn't have a primary challenger. You are going into the general election. How are you feeling? I mean, what have you been up to?
Well, you know, it's certainly winnable, but it's going to be an interesting race. I don't have a Democratic opponent. I have an independent opponent. Okay. So that changes the political science a little bit. So certainly I think he's working hard on his side of the equation, and I'm working hard on my side of the equation. I don't know exactly how this will turn out yet, but I think it can go either way, and we'll have to see what happens.
Well, it should be a fun one. We'll talk to you a little bit more about the actual campaign on some different times, as I know you're, as you said, not outdoor knocking. And I tell you what, the county commission right now is a kind of an interesting beast. We have your race that's going on with the independent. We have Richard Ranzaw that is going against a Democrat after coming off and squeaking through the Republican primary. That should be a really fun one. We have the kind of up in the air with what's happening with Michael O'Donnell right now. Whatever comes up in the county commission, we could see some crazy stuff happen in the next few months.
And that's true. And we also have District 1, which is Commissioner Dave Renner. He's not running for re-election, but that's an open seat with a Republican and Democrat running for that as well. So we have at least one person being replaced no matter what, and potentially 3 others if you want to think of it that way. So it could be very interesting to see what happens between now and January.
It's going to be a good time. Well, I want to talk to you. I know you guys do not have a county commission meeting today, correct?
That is correct. We're not doing it today. We're going to have our next meeting will be September the 5th, next Wednesday, at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Very good. Very good. You guys ended up, we talked about it a little bit last week, but passing the budget. You guys are on track there. The summertime now kind of wrapping. What is kind of the duty that you guys focus on in the fall time? Is it getting ready for next year? Is it kind of laying low for a little bit now that the budget's passed? What's kind of the priorities you guys focus on at this point in the year?
Well, it's interesting. The budget process generally starts kind of late in the year, around November or December. We'll actually be in the process for the following year's budget cycle. But we do have a bit of a breather right now, and so we're going to focus on some other things. We're going to have a workshop on our fire district coming up. There's going to be that's actually going to be next Tuesday. By the way, another open meeting, and it's not in the courthouse this time. This will be actually at the Sedgwick County Extension Office in what's called the Meadowlark Room. It will be at 9 o'clock in the morning. Open meeting. We would love for people to come and listen in. I don't know if there'll be an opportunity for anybody to speak there besides the staff and commissioners. But it will be very interesting, and I'm sure that will be recorded and will be on YouTube after the fact. But over the years, we've had a bit of a challenge on the fire district in terms of as cities continue to annex more property and as things get more expensive, the fire district has gotten it's over 18 mills, 18.131 mills, just for that one public safety service. And the number of people who pay into the fire district is a shrinking number. And so our responsibilities have not gone down. And so if you think about those converging lines, it does create a bit of a challenge in the long term. We're fine right now. We've got a healthy ending balance. We're doing okay. But I can tell you that in the next 10 years, we're probably going to have to do some kind of structural changes. And the question is, what would that look like? And so what are the options? One of the things that people like to talk about is consolidating Wichita and Sedgwick County. County commissioners generally are I think most of us are very agreeable to the idea of consolidating functions or services or whatever people think is good, but it's got to be for a purpose. And the purpose would be we're lowering the cost of government, we are improving our services, and the combination of those two things are the main drivers for the discussion of consolidation. And we would like to know, is there any opportunities here, or how will we solve this long-term issues with the fire district? And so that'll be next Tuesday at 9 o'clock in the morning. So we spend a lot of time this time of the year talking about employee policies, things like the consolidation discussion. We talk about all kinds of, kind of a review of what we do in Sedgwick County and looking for, what problems do we have that we want to address. And that's where we spend a lot of our time over the next several months. And we've got a number of those types of things on our agenda going forward.
Sure. It's going to be fun talking about some of those. And it's nice, as you mentioned, kind of the not necessarily the big, heavy agenda issues that you guys talk about throughout the rest of the year, but kind of the low point to address kind of the smaller things, because the fine tuning of the county is kind of what we need to look forward to as we look at growing. I mean, as you guys talk about consolidation, you've talked about deregulation on many things. By the way, wherever did we get to when it came to the plumbing deregulation of certain standards of plumbing in the area? Did we get that addressed?
Yeah, we did, and I was pleased that we did move forward. We did adopt all of the amendment packages, and so we have right now the 25th. We adopted actually the current code on everything else except for plumbing. But on plumbing, we've got the dual code. It's called the Uniform Plumbing Code, and we also have the International Plumbing Code. So we have two plumbing code options in Sedgwick County. in the unincorporated, which includes some of the smaller cities of Sedgwick County as well. But on the International Plumbing Code, we finally did get the amendment package, which makes it more usable and kind of fits our community a little bit better. That amendment package did get adopted by the County Commission. So we've got 2 usable codes. We're going to kind of let this thing cook for a while and see how it settles down. But that is a big checkbox on our accomplishment list. This is something we've been trying to get done for about 3 years now, and now finally we've got that thing ready to go. The next step on our plumbing codes will be to potentially update them to the 2018 code versions, which would require a complete code review once again. But this is actually a little bit easier than what we just went through. Basically, they just took up the changes between the codes, which is given to us in a summary of that code change. We look at those changes, and we usually carry the amendments forward. So it's a fairly easy task compared to what they just got through. And so I anticipate we will probably want to update both of the UPC and IPC to the 2018 versions with amendment packages adopted on both of those. And I think at that point, we're good for 3 years. At that point, we just need to sit back and see how this works.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
That should be fun.
We did adopt one thing last week, which you'll find interesting, Andy. It's called the Appendix Q. Appendix Q, and the city adopted this as well. This deals with the tiny home issue. Any structures that's less than 500 square feet. I know someone keeps telling you 400 square feet, but in the code book it says 500 square feet or smaller.
Okay.
It's considered a home that's qualified for Appendix Q, which allows for things like the ship's ladder versus a regular stairwell, for example, or some different egress options like a roof egress option versus a window. And those types of things are allowed on these smaller structures by right, by us adopting this Appendix Q. We could have done this, the developers could have done this anyway, but it would require a variance process. And that means one by one, every single structure would have to complete a variance application and would have been processed by staff. And it's just very bureaucratic. And so by adopting Appendix Q, we're able to just dispense with that. Any structure that's less than 500 square feet that's going to be intended for residential housing will qualify by right for Appendix Q code changes. There's about a half dozen things in there, things like egress and stairs already mentioned, a few other little things about that as well. But both the city and the county adopted that. This is a national code change. It's not something we developed. This is what's sweeping the nation in terms of how to deal with tiny homes and the code changes that are relevant to those smaller structures. So that now is the law in Sedgwick County as of last meeting, which I think was 2 weeks ago now. But
sure.
Anyway.
We're kind of in the middle of a social experiment with that mini mansion deal, and if they are going to be smaller homes like that, then, I mean, the price per square foot that they're trying to sell it for and the value of the house that's going to maintain versus the value of the homes that are going to be in the surrounding areas. And then, as you mentioned, with the coding on there, the city, as you know, obviously annexed that area for the properties to allow them to begin doing this. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I know people are still very unhappy about it. Legally, they can't really do anything about it, but I guess we'll wait and see what comes of it in the end of the day.
Well, that is true. One of the things that people need to remember is the restrictive covenants, that, in other words, homeowners associations, in other words, created by self-organization and most of the time developed by developers as they begin to organize a subdivision. But those HOAs can be very restrictive. They can dictate the size and value of the homes in that subdivision.
Do you live in an HOA?
Pardon me?
Do you live in an HOA?
I do not. In fact, I don't like them. But I understand there's some risk. I have some risk. My neighbors might leave the trash cans in front of their house, for example. And that does happen. So without an HOA, I'm not paying those dues. I have a little bit more freedom, but so do my neighbors. And that means I've got to put up with my neighbors that are basically doing things I don't like.
Sure.
But restrictive HOAs, the restrictive covenants, do create rules for maintenance and for appearance and things like that. And they actually have some punitive things they can do, and they can actually access the court system to impose pressure on people to comply with those restrictive covenants. One thing people need to remember is that restrictive covenants can regulate the size and value of structures in that subdivision. We can't do that from the government. So the challenge in this particular case is we have one subdivision on the micromansions discussion. We have one subdivision on the east side of 143rd Street, which I'm sure has an HOA, a restrictive covenant. for the size and value and look and appearance of the homes in that subdivision. Across the street, being annexed and now replatted, I believe they will actually have a restrictive covenant for appearance or things like that within this macro-mansion tiny home village. However, they're regulating, from that side of the street, they're regulating the size and value of homes differently than the ones across the street on the east side. So it still fits the model that these subdivisions can regulate themselves and place themselves under their own rules. But the government, we're not allowed to, by zoning laws, we're not allowed to regulate the size or value of structures. That's the current law. One of my questions is, and I don't have an answer to this, should we have a zoning classification for tiny homes because they are so much different? Do we want to treat them like maybe a recreational vehicle park or like a multifamily dwelling area or whatever? That's a good question. Some developers would say we don't want to do that because they want to build the tiny homes. They would like to have the freedom to build those homes wherever they want to build them, and I understand that side of the issue. There's other developers that would like to see those restrictive, would like to see some zoning perhaps because they don't want to invest and build a subdivision worth millions of dollars, $1 million homes and have one of these placed right across the street from them. And so they might like to see some zoning controls on where these things can be placed.
Sure.
So I have developers really on both sides of the issue.
Well, you're right, and I think this is going to be a discussion that we're going to have down the road. I think this is going to be kind of the social experiment to see how well it plays, negative and positive, and then be able to move forward down the road with that. We're out of time, my friend. Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. I know you guys don't have a meeting today, but you guys are back at it again next week. And again, it's not necessarily the hard-hitting budgetary stuff that is done, luckily, but still really important information that hopefully everybody can come out and see. So, Jim, I appreciate it, my friend. Keep door knocking, keep campaigning, doing the thing, and we'll talk to you again next Wednesday.
Excellent, Andy. Thank you so much.
Hey, always a good time, my friend. We love it. 7 minutes past the hour. We'll take, or to the top of the hour, 7 minutes there. We'll take a break, wrap up hour number 2. When we come back as well, looking forward to talking with Sarah Lee Parrish. She's an attorney. Also, she's the director of the Oklahoma Cannabis Trade Association, talking about marijuana down in the Okie State. Got to take a break. This is The Voice of Reason.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
All right, top of the hour news coming up. Thanks again to Sedgwick County Commissioner Jim Howell. As we always love chatting with him on a Wednesday, we'll chat with him again next week. When we come back, hour number 3, we got a lot to get to. We're going to be talking with Sarah Lee Parrish, attorney, also director of the Oklahoma Cannabis Trade Association, on the marijuana issue in the state of Oklahoma. Plus, we do have some tickets. I want to get back to the educational thing a little bit later as well, get your thoughts on that. But we do have some tickets to the Josh Abbott Band with special guest Blackhawk at the Kansas State Fair. That one's coming up soon, Sunday, September 9th, next weekend. It's going to be a good time. We'll give away those pair of tickets in hour number 3 as well. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hour number 3, The Voice of Reason, coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
These are the ones that are trying to get illegal aliens to be able to vote in our elections. This is the party trying to get people who are actually incarcerated at the time to actually vote. This is the same party that doesn't want voter ID laws, and now they're saying, the county's missed it by a day. Sorry, you can't get those voted. You got to be removed off the ballots. So you want them to be able to vote. You just don't want them to be able to sign a petition to get one of your opponents on the ballot as a candidate.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh man, the days just keep getting better and better and better. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side. Simulcasting on TV as well, KGPT TV channel 2610. Good morning. Welcome aboard. We are on Facebook Live as well, facebook.com/1480KQAM. It's great to have you along. 7 minutes past the hour here. 316-728-8255, 316-72 on Talk. We have a lot to get to. We're already in the third hour, and we haven't covered half of what I wanted to talk about today, which is okay. I guess we can talk about it tomorrow, too. But, man, the days fly by, and our activism, conservatism on a daily basis kind of makes it a little bit exciting. What do you say? 316-721-8255. I want to shift gears a little bit from from what we've been talking about. We'll get back to the educational finance here in Kansas. Another state that's had the issue with educational finance, Oklahoma. We've talked about that in the past. We'll do that again a little bit later. But a fun topic we always love chatting about here on the program that always drives a lot of discussion and dialogue. After the initiative that was passed in Oklahoma just, a few months ago, and it was a petition signature-driven issue. It ended up passing for medical marijuana in Oklahoma. Now, there was some different discussion on who was going to be able to get licenses, how it was going to work, if you had to have medical issues to grow it, all that. And it was very kind of, at least to me, confusing because obviously we don't live down there. So I want to talk about that. But since that's happened, a couple of things have happened. Number one, it was that they've tried to put the initiative on the ballot to do recreational marijuana, and that failed. It sounds like they didn't get enough signatures to get it on the ballot. But for the medical side of it, over 1,600 people and different businesses since it's passed have applied for the marijuana license to be able to grow. I mean, there's a lot of people that are looking at this. So to talk to us a little bit about that and more, she's an attorney. She's also the director of the Oklahoma Cannabis Trade Association. Sarah Lee Gossett Parrish is on the line with us here. Sarah, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm living the dream. I really appreciate you coming on the show with us. It is big news, as this is one of the first mid-America state regional areas, other than Colorado, that has passed marijuana in the medical side of this. So far, from your take on this, coming from the trade association in the state government, how has it gone so far? What's been the response?
Well, Andy, and I should say that I am a member of the Cannabis Trade Association in Oklahoma and the National Cannabis Bar Association, but I am not the director. My friend Chance Gilbert is the director of that. But I think it's gone very well. It's been a great response as far as people applying. We've had now over 2,000 applications. 1,600 of those approximately were for personal use, and then we've had almost 400 grower applications, more than 100 processor applications, and nearly 300 dispensary applications. I think there's certainly a lot of interest.
There's definitely a lot of interest. Let's talk about the initiative itself. I know that there was some confusion about who would be able to get a license before it's for medical purposes, which I know, and I mean, I came from Colorado. I moved here from Colorado 3 years ago as the medical marijuana side started. Then I went to the recreational side. I see that potentially happening in Oklahoma as well. But for the initiative ballot that started in Oklahoma, what are the rules and regulations for you to be able to either grow or manufacture or sell or be a dispensary of that sort for medical purposes in the state right now?
Right now, you have to be licensed by the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority, and there is a total online procedure for that, an application procedure that opened on Saturday morning, and you must be in possession of a license to operate, grow, process, or be in possession of medical marijuana. So.
Okay. What is there a certain type of requirements in order for you to get that license? Is it kind of a difficult thing, or is it one that just kind of a first come first serve? Because I know, as you mentioned, with so many people applying for that right now, how many are we looking at potentially getting in the state of Oklahoma?
Well, they've not put a cap on how many they're going to issue at this juncture, and our state question 788 authorizes all of those things: the cultivation, processing, sale, and use of marijuana in general terms, medically speaking, with few limitations compared to other states. The application process is pretty straightforward. I've had several clients who have applied, and I filed applications for some of them this Saturday. They put a checklist on there. Primarily, it's showing that you are an Oklahoma citizen or that the 75% ownership in your business entity is through Oklahomans, establishing the locations. You've got to have things like your GPS coordinates. You've got to attest that it's over 1,000 feet from a school. There's a form for that. So the authority, the OMMA, was very good about putting this checklist online and letting people know in advance what they must do to comply so that you had all your documents ready and PDF'd and ready to upload when you apply.
Sure. Well, it definitely sounds like it's going to be kind of a booming industry to some degree down in Oklahoma. Let's talk about the growing for a second with people wanting to grow it. The type of growing situations or circumstances that potentially could happen. I mean, are we talking about farms that may grow it with like 500 acres worth of the plant, or is it just kind of a small to where you can have a limited amount of the plants to grow? What are kind of the stipulations on that side?
Well, as far as the growing, there are not stipulations concerning the number of plants that can be grown at this time, but keep in mind our state legislature has yet to become involved, and the health board rules that initially were enacted were much more comprehensive than those that they actually ended up adopting subsequently that are now in place. With regard to possession, you might be interested in this. I've got the initiative petition in front of me. And for medicinal purposes, a person in possession of a state-issued medical marijuana license can consume marijuana legally. This is for your own personal use if if you have a physician who has written a prescription. You can legally possess up to 3 ounces of marijuana on your person, legally possess 6 mature marijuana plants, 6 seedling plants, 1 ounce of concentrated marijuana, 72 ounces of edible marijuana, and up to 8 ounces of marijuana just in your residence, in your personal home.
Wow.
Possession, I find this an interesting provision as well, Andy. Possession of up to 1.5 ounces of marijuana by persons who can state a medical condition, but not in possession of a state-issued medical marijuana license, shall constitute a misdemeanor offense with a fine not to exceed $400. So basically that decriminalizes possession up to that amount if you're able to state a medical condition.
Sure. And it sounds like it's kind of opened and it's leading towards kind of the more recreational side at some point. What are kind of the stipulations on the medical side? What type of medical issue do you have to have approved by the doctor in order to be able to obtain the cannabis?
Well, that is an excellent question, and one to which I can't tell you the answer right now because no one knows. This is sort of the great Oklahoma medical marijuana experiment and adventure, and I think we're all aware there are certain conditions where the use of marijuana medicinally has proven to be effective, such as pain relief, for arthritic conditions, for many instances where people have been prescribed opioids, but it remains to be seen. I mean, technically someone with migraines could likely obtain a prescription. For glaucoma, we really don't know the answer to that right now.
Well, and as you mentioned, I mean, the state legislature, you said, may be tweaking some of this and kind of laying down some ground rules for that. So how much do you think it may actually change a little bit when the legislature does address this? Could it maybe put some defined rules on the medical side, or to defined rules on maybe how much you can grow, or maybe change how much you can actually possess? I don't know how much that may actually change by the end of the day.
Well, I think that's a great question, and I do believe the legislature will get in there and change things from what they are now and lay down some restrictions, quite likely. There's also been talk of whether or not the $2,500 threshold investment requirement for your license app is going to go up, and because that's one of the very smallest application fees in the country. Which I think is a plus in our state to let the little guys and girls get involved if they want to, from an entrepreneurial standpoint. But I think there's a good chance the legislature may raise that as well. We'll just have to see.
We're talking with Sarah Lee Gossett Parrish with the Oklahoma Cannabis Trade Association. They did try, there was an initiative, a signature petition trying to get recreational marijuana on the ballot for November. That one ended up failing. Just out of curiosity, why do you think the medical side ended up passing with a great support from what it sounds like, but they were close to about 20,000 signatures short when it came to the recreational side to get on the ballot?
My own personal opinion on that, Andy, is that they just did not have the time and the manpower to amass the signatures. Just from taking the pulse in my community, I think that the support is likely there.
Mm-hmm.
But it could also be the fact that we are a red state and we are conservative, and that there are many who've had family members and loved ones who could benefit from the medicinal use of marijuana, and so they carve out an exception for that. But with regard to legalizing for responsible adult usage, they're opposed.
Sure.
So I don't know exactly which to attribute that to.
Sure. Last couple of questions before we let you go. I know you're busy, but talking about the fees, talking about the number of people applying for this to make it happen, potentially a revenue builder, obviously, for the state of Oklahoma. How much revenue is anticipated to bring in for the state based on this industry as a whole?
Well, that's an excellent question. You know, the one of the spokespeople for the State Department of Health, who oversees the authority, said that as of Monday, which would have been yesterday, they had received about $2.1 million in revenue. But just implementing this program is going to cost more than $4 million. So the fees currently have come in at about half of what it's going to be to implement the program. But I think the 7% tax that they're imposing is going to be just a game changer for our revenues here in the state, as you've seen in other states that have legalized it.
Sure.
So I think it could be a very good thing, and I hope and believe the legislature is going to handle it in a way that's beneficial to our state.
Sarah Lee Gossett Parrish with the Oklahoma Cannabis Trade Association. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in Oklahoma. From my experience coming from Colorado, I think since, as you mentioned, since the medical side has been passed, it's only a matter of time until the recreational side comes about as well. And it's, with what's happening there, with the potential revenue, with the amount of interest that's there, then it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the state of Oklahoma.
It surely will be. It surely will be.
Very good. Well, Sarah, I really appreciate you coming on the program. We'd love to get you back on later on as things progress down there.
Absolutely. Would enjoy it. Thanks for having me, Andy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's Sarah Parrish right there with the Oklahoma Cannabis Trade Association. 20 minutes past the hour. We'll take a break. We'll get your phone calls when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker KQAM.
6 minutes past the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM. Great to have you today. Thanks again to Sarah Lee Gossett Parrish.
What exactly is her title?
She is with the Oklahoma Cannabis Trade Association.
Awesome.
As they regulate now the marijuana down south of the border. Here's what I took away from that interview.
Dude.
It's so open right now. Why don't you just legalize it recreationally? They have no idea what medical stipulations you have to have in order to consume. You can have 6 plants. You can have 6 seedlings. You can have 2 ounces. You can have like 72 ounces of edibles, meaning like a giant bear, gummy bear.
72 ounces?
72 ounces.
Wouldn't
all
that be
of this.
several bears?
Well, you could have several bears.
That would be like a yogi size.
Well, that's what I'm
bear.
saying, like the big, like monster gummy bear. That's what I'm talking about.
Speak of experience.
Hey, I lived in Colorado. I've seen these things. I've seen things, man. But you can get all of this stuff, and you don't have to. You could go in and say, I got the cold. And you could get this stuff right now. There's no stipulation on who can and cannot for medical purposes.
Well, then what's the need to legalize recreation? It sounds like you can be recreationally sick enough to get it.
Well, see, and that's what I'm talking about. This is the openness of, if we're going to do this, why put stipulations on this and say you can only carry 2 ounces of marijuana with you if it's, first off, you don't have to necessarily have the green card, or it's very easy to get the green card for the medical purposes, and you tell that it's medical side, and you're going to have law enforcement enforce, but yet it's going to be open enough for this. I don't get that.
I want to meet up with GS, Greg Steckline, this morning. I do.
Yeah.
Because we've got a transmitter site in Guyman, Oklahoma.
We do, right on the Panhandle.
And, I mean, I think we could erect a little pharmacy sign at the radio station.
See the Green Plus sign. There you go.
There you go.
The Green Plus sign. It could be the Big Talker KGYN, also your medical marijuana.
Radio
we
never
could sell politics and gummy bears.
Radio never sounded so good.
See, that's what I'm talking. We could sell. Here's your Joe Pegs with a side of gummy bears on the side of it. There, we could do this.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, our sister station down in Guyman, Oklahoma is, also called the Big Talker KGYN, and it is talk radio, just like it is here on KQAM. And you're right, we could sell conservative talk radio with a side of edibles and gummy bears.
With a twist.
With a twist. Are you kidding me? This is what it's going to. I'm telling you. They're going to legalize recreational, or people are going to abuse it so much, law enforcement's going to be like, I'm out, I can't enforce this, I have no idea how to enforce this, and it's not going to matter in any way, shape, or form, just let it ride. Right now, they also do not have any stipulations on growing. You could grow either in your backyard as your private little garden, or you could grow on a 500-acre lot of farming ground to grow marijuana right now.
Well, I was sharing this with someone, but one of the news stories I covered for Oklahoma News on Monday, Saturday was the first day of permitting for the state of Oklahoma to get these licenses. $1.5 million raised in application fees in just one day.
And that's why we had them on, since it's open now, over 2,000 applicants in the first week.
Crazy.
Although the expense of the government department to regulate this is over $4 million, so not quite there on the efficiency of government yet, but what do you do? Got some calls on the line. We'll get to you as soon as we come back. It's open lines to you right here on The Voice of Reason. Stay tuned.
I can see myself tearing up the road faster than any other boy has ever
When taxes go up, so do our tempers.
Oh my God, no!
Fighting for Kansans every day. This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome into The Voice of Reason, making it happen, doing the thing, advancing conservatism on a daily basis. Welcome in 316-721-8255, 316-72-on-TALK. We're so confident in our conservatism, we're about 98% sure of our gender identification. Sometimes that changes a little bit. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Sounds like the party's starting in Oklahoma, baby. Get the party started, yeah. As they kind of keep it wide open for the interpretation of what's a medical need. Again, here's the thing. If you're going to do it, then just do it. Just do it. Legalize it without any stipulations. You can only have 2 ounces of you on it. You can have a bunch of gummy bears, 72 ounces of gummy bears, by the way. You can have 2 ounces of marijuana. You can grow 6 plants at home. You can have 6 seedlings. But if you do 2.5 ounces, we're going to come and get you. So you put the stipulation on. Law enforcement now gets to find a way to regulate all that. Okay. That's going to be cool. It's for medical purposes, so what's going to be the medical reasoning for this? What medical issue do you need in order to consume? Whatever the doctor feels appropriate. Doc, my sinuses are congested. I got a cold. It's the fall time. Things are changing. Here you go. Here's some pot. You're good. Come on. Just legalize a recreational. If you're going to do it that way, again, I don't care. I'm all about the individual rights sort of thing, and if people want to do it, then fine. If they're in their basement, I don't really care. But don't tell me it's for recreational purposes. Don't tell me that you're going to put stipulations on this and then keep it wide open for interpretation. All you're doing is creating a government bureaucracy that's going to be more expensive to regulate than actually just allowing the thing to flow. A little ridiculous. 316-721-8255. The phones are lighting up. I'm sure that I'm going to get some disagreement on this with me. That's okay. I love that. But let's go to it. The phones are full. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Helen, how are you?
I'm doing just great.
Good.
Well, it's just exciting to see that God's prophecies are coming to pass exactly as they are written. And he says in St. Luke chapter 16, verse 15, and he said unto them, the political leaders and the religious leaders, ye are they which justify yourselves before mankind, but God knoweth your hearts, mind, and intellects. For that which is highly esteemed or judged to be righteous among men is abomination in the sight of God. So there we go.
Well, there you go. I mean, there you have it. I mean, the justifications are it's all right there. Appreciate the call, Helen, very much. Let's go to the phones line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, dude. It's Sean here.
Well, hey, you may need to slow down on some of that consumption. I mean, Oklahoma is only about an hour's drive from now.
Well, I was getting into my truck, and I smacked my ankle on the door jamb. Had to fire up a doobie.
You know what? You probably need a green card now. I mean, you stubbed your toe. You probably need to get the full 72 ounces of edibles. You need to get 2 ounces of pot. You need to be growing 6 plants in your home with 6 seeds ready to go as soon as they bloom, right?
Yeah.
Come on, man. I mean, you got to what's wrong? You got to get this going.
Oh, man, dude. So, okay, from the state where you couldn't get beer stronger than 3.2, marijuana is legal now? I mean, come on, man. Do they still only have 3.2 beer in Oklahoma?
Actually, no. I think they increased that a little bit. Actually, if you drive through Oklahoma, which I haven't been to Oklahoma. Actually, I don't think I've ever been to Oklahoma. I'm thinking of Missouri. I don't know. Oklahoma has been one of those very conservative staunch states, which is why it was a shocker when they were the first ones in the Mid-America region here to kind of pass the recreational side. And again, I don't care if you're doing it in your basement. It doesn't matter to me. You're in Oklahoma. There's probably nothing better to do anyways than get high and go cow tipping. I really don't care, but don't try and pass off a law saying that you're going to keep a tight lid on it for medical purposes only, and then keep it so open that you can stub your toe in your car and probably go get a green card by the doctor at the end of the day. Give me a break. Here's the thing. How is law enforcement supposed to regulate saying you got 2.5 ounces, not 2 ounces in your car, and I'm going to justify whether it's actually for a medical purpose or not? Either do it or don't do it. Don't try and do halvesies here and try and make everybody happy.
You can't regulate something like that.
No, you can't. So why put it on the burden of law enforcement to try and do that?
Now, the fact is, okay, in my opinion, just the whole idea of medical marijuana is just an excuse to eventually get recreational marijuana. This is the same thing that they did in I think, Colorado and Oregon. I don't even know what all states now have legalized this.
There's about I don't remember. There's about 8-10 different states. Colorado and California is working on recreational. Imagine that California doesn't even have recreational yet. They're in medical side. The state of Washington does have recreational and medical, and then maybe 1 or 2 East Coast states. But that's really about it. We're the first. Oklahoma's the first one in this region outside of Colorado that actually has done this.
So when the wind blows out of the south from Oklahoma, I'm going to have to smell all that crap up here.
See, when the storms come up from the south, which they usually like to do, and they come over the Oklahoma border, get ready. Everybody in that path from the Oklahoma border to Wichita, we're probably going to get a contact high from Oklahoma now. Be ready for it because they're going to have 500-acre land growing marijuana for this distribution here. Get ready for it.
What are the police going to do when they're all driving around high in their cop cars because of Oklahoma?
Dude, you need to slow down and stuff, man.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm going to do. Sean, I appreciate it. You know what you need to do? You need to buy investment stock in Cheetos. I'm just saying Cheetos. They're going to do very well in Oklahoma here very soon. Let's go back to line number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen again.
Helen, go for it real quick.
Okay. Well, my husband works in Oklahoma City.
Oh, be ready. He's going to come home with a contact.
He says if the drivers in Oklahoma are bad enough, he can't imagine them driving around loaded with pot.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. They're going to be driving around loaded. Imagine how many workers are actually going to lose their jobs now because they got a cough, they got the cold, they end up going to smoke in this, and then they get a drug test the next day at work and get fired. Come on. There it is. Helen, appreciate it. Let's go back to the phones. Line number 4. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. It's Nick.
I knew it. I knew you could give us a call. Nick, how you doing, sir?
I'm okay. How are you?
Living the dream, my friend. I feel like I'm getting a contact high already.
Oh, goodness. From either the BS that's floating around the station there or I don't know what coming from other states.
Oh, man. It's coming from somewhere.
So I guess I have a question. If we're going to the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence beyond all the reefer madness and joking, and shall we say, what substances should be legal and not legal in America?
It should be up to the state.
It should be up to the states, okay? And so we have this federal prohibition of cannabis, which, is obviously a lot of people think is unconstitutional and not good.
Sure.
Using resources of law enforcement. And so the people understand that there are benefits to using this, what I like to call a nutraceutical, because it should be descheduled and made as like St. John's wort or any other alcohol or tobacco, whatever regulation you want to be in.
Sure.
But the argument that we're having just doesn't make any sense if we're talking about them being about our conservative Republican values. If we want to get into a philosophical debate, I'm sure there would be lots of avenue for Helen to talk about whiskey and other types of different things. But if we're looking at it through the lens of American patriots, we have to be fair about the assessment and not so much in the derision or the being trained monkeys, as it were, talking about it in a joking manner instead of a serious manner that affects agriculture and everything else that we so preciously, dearly love in Kansas.
Sure. Well, and look, I agree with you that it shouldn't be regulated at the federal level. I don't think that it should be. I don't think that it is constitutional in that sense. I think it should be at the statewide level. I mean, look, as Sean even mentioned before, I mean, many states still have, or Oklahoma used to at least, still have 3.2 beer regulation where you couldn't have any type of alcohol above 3.2 level or 3% level alcohol content. There was in many states, Kansas, just until 7-8 years ago, just still had rules in many counties to where you couldn't buy alcohol on Sundays. They still have regulations on tobacco. So I think, and do I agree with those laws? Not necessarily, but I think that they should be statewide regulation on these types of things. It shouldn't be a federal level issue, and if states choose or choose not to, then it should be up to the states, and I think the states should have that choice. Then when it gets down to the state, I don't think that we should be using our law enforcement money to try and regulate something like this, especially with the ridiculousness of how these laws were passed in Oklahoma. I just am not a fan of legalizing all of this because I'm not a fan of the product or of the actual item, but I see the medical purpose of it, and I like the idea of a medical marijuana issue. But again, this is so loosely written in Oklahoma that I don't see it actually being for medical purposes. I mean, right now, she couldn't even, from the Oklahoma Cannabis Trade Association, the one that regulates the trade and the licensing and the growing and the manufacturing and the selling, couldn't even say what the medical conditions were in order for you to actually obtain this. So what's the point of even having it as medical if we don't even know what medical purposes it's going to be used for?
She also said that if they had a little more time, that she probably thought they would be able to do adult use. Now, the thing is, for the past 5 years, some people like myself have been advocating for state interaction in getting this cannabis prohibition repealed. But we have gotten stonewalled, and we have gotten, we don't even want to talk about that. Don't even mention that here in the State House. Your house.
Sure.
Don't even mention that word to me. And so the people of Oklahoma figured out that they have to play around all the reefer madness and all the jokes and all the other BS.
Oh, come on. You got to admit the reefer madness jokes are kind of fun.
Sure, they're fun, but the public perception of that old lady going and buying her prescription instead of food versus, or a child with seizures going on these other medications that don't do a darn thing for them except give them really nasty side effects or things like that. But we can joke about it on a hypothetical level because it makes us feel good because we're really ignorant about what we're talking about.
Let me ask you this, and I know we're running short on time here, so I got to let you go in a minute, but I brought this issue up a couple of times, and I think we mentioned it briefly yesterday, but let's say that this goes a little bit more, and we do have the more loosey-goosey type of laws on this medical side. And again, I see the need for the seizures and for cancer and for, the pain relief and that sort of thing. I get it, and I'm for the medical side. It's going to be very difficult because it's always going to be that slippery slope towards the recreational. But as we do have it a little more loosey-goosey, do companies and businesses have the right to drug test you at work because they may be thinking that you may be consuming this certain thing? And if you did it last night, so right now we don't know how it affects every individual, do they have the right to drug test and hire or fire based on the fact that you use?
Okay, so how many prescriptions are there out there that they don't drug test for? Number one. Number two, let's look at who benefits from the drug testing. It's not the cannabis consumers. It's the people on the methamphetamines and the cocaines and all that stuff that get out of your system within 24 to 72 hours. People who consume cannabis can have cannabis in their system for 30 days or longer.
Right,
Doesn't
and that's
mean
the
they're
problem.
impaired or anything like that, but, it's still in their system. So
And that's
get
the
whacked.
problem. That's the problem. So how do we regulate that and say, you did it last night, you don't have it in your system?
Kansas is a right-to-work place. If I want to hire you, it's because I trust you, I think you have good merit, and I want you to be on my team. And it has nothing to do with what I think your prescriptions are or what you put into your body or how much coffee you drink or anything like that. It's your behavior, it's your conduct, it's your compassion, and it's your principle.
Well, I completely, I wholeheartedly agree with that. The problem that I see is that I've seen it in Colorado. There's a massive workforce shortage because they can't hire people because they failed drug tests, and the companies are desperate.
Is that a government problem or a family problem?
Well, that's the family problem right there, but unfortunately that's what we're seeing, and it's been there long enough that now it's my father-in-law who works a major cabinet shop in Denver. They are so short-staffed in every interview that they've had, they cannot hire individuals because they failed drug tests right now, and that's the problem. There is a massive work shortage while we're seeing a tripling of homeless individuals there because of the living costs that are going up so much there.
Right.
No one can get jobs because they're smoking the doobie.
Here's a good example. This gentleman that did the latest shooting in the video game play. Video games, it's not a substance you put in your body, but it's something that apparently spiritually you can get addicted to. So are we Americans, freedom-loving Americans, that want to allow people to make their own choices? Or are we going to just, as a government, because the family has failed, take over everybody's choices for themselves?
Well, I'm with you. I mean, we should be making the family decisions. It should be in the private sector. Now, I think with the shooting there, I mean, they had said that he had mental issues before, so I don't know if I want to directly relate it to the video game, but we've seen cases before where addiction happens in the video games as well. But I appreciate the call, Nick. I really do. I got to take a break here, but it's an interesting conversation. You're right. It comes down to the family at the end of the day. It comes down to the family values. The sad part is that we've gone down the road so far to where we've been trained to not have the family values that now we look towards the government for those answers. I'm not saying that's right in any way, shape, or form, but now we see what we're seeing in Colorado. Homeless population rise. No one can get a job, or many people can't get jobs because they failed the drug test. And instead of actually not consuming the product any longer because they actually want to get a job, then they play the victimhood, and then the government comes in and swoops in and gives them the opportunity to take care of them. Appreciate it very much. It's an ongoing conversation. We'll see what happens in Oklahoma, but the loosey-goosey rules. I got a headache. I think I need to go and actually get some marijuana. I have a pair of tickets right now. Josh Abbott and the Blackhawks. It is Sunday, September 9th at the Kansas State Fair. It's going to be a heck of a concert. I got a pair of tickets for you right now. Let's do caller number 2. Caller number 2, here's what you can do. I mean, concert's a great time, right? Light up, baby. Light up. I'm not encouraging that at the Kansas State Fair in any way, shape, or form. But I got a pair of tickets for you. Caller number 2 right now. We'll get you to Josh Abbott and along with the Blackhawks at the Kansas State Fair Sunday, September 9th, right here on KQAM. We'll give you a call, 721-825-5721. Talk. Caller number 2 right now on The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
What you gonna do this weekend? Dude. Buying Cheetos. Welcome into The Voice of Reason. Wrapping up the program. We got just about a minute left of the show. Let's try and squeeze in one more phone call. What do you say? Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. I'm double dipping.
Hey, well, that's all right. You got 45 seconds. Go for it.
All right. My first question, I think, was what substances should be legal and not legal. You said it should be the state. So I'm asking you, what role does the DEA and the FDA have, and should they be in existence? Beyond that, we have an election coming up, and I think if this issue doesn't get straightened out by the Republican Party, do not blame me if you lose. God bless you, Andy. Have a good day.
I love it, Nick. Appreciate the call. To answer your question for the DEA and the FDA, that should be, again, if we choose to regulate things through the government with different quality measures, at the state level. At the state level. There you go. State level. State government. The federal government didn't say anything about actually doing anything like that. All those departments, the DEA, FDA, the Department of Education, the Environmental Protection, the Department of Energy, Department of Housing and Urban Development, Department of whatever, yada, 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 yada. State level. Doesn't need to be at the federal level. Love it, Nick. Appreciate it very much. Got to wrap up the show today. We got lots more coming up on a Thursday. This is The Voice of Reason. Enjoy your Wednesday.